3, KPTV's Rod Anders and Elaine Murphy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magic in the Air. I'm Rod Anders.
And I'm Elaine Murphy. And for the next 2 hours, we're going to be taking you behind the scenes of the 6th Annual Rose Festival Air Show.
You know, Elaine, this air show is regarded as one of the top in the nation, and judging by the quality of this year's acts, it's easy to see why.
That's right, Rod. And of course, we've been traveling all across North America getting to know these high-flying daredevils. For instance, I journeyed to sunny Southern California to meet 3 pilots who couldn't be more different. Yet, once they take to the skies, they act as one unit, the Sierra Aces.
And one of the featured military performers of this year's show is the F-14D Tomcat, a carrier-based fighter. And I'll take you aboard the USS Carl Vinson, one of the Navy's newest carriers, to see firsthand what it's like to take off and land aboard a floating airport.
I met up with 7-time U.S. aerobatic champion Leo Loudenslager at his home in Tennessee. His brand of flying will have your head spinning.
Salt Lake City, Utah. That's the home of Rick Brickard, better known as the Red Knight. He and his T-33 jet go through a high-G routine that's second to none.
This year's headline act, the Snowbirds from Canada. I visited their home base in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, as they prepared for another season of high-speed formation flying.
We'll also meet the members of the parachute team, the Shooting Stars. Now, these 4 young ladies have entertained audiences all over the world with their exciting escapades, and today's performance will be no exception.
Our own Phil Cassidy, with his unique brand of humor, will try to explain how hundreds of thousands of people get to and from the air show in an orderly fashion.
And Lars Larson finds out what it takes to orchestrate an air show as he meets the man in charge of all the activities in the air.
All this and much more awaits you as we begin our coverage of the 1993 U.S. Bank Rose Festival Air Show.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Why use Valvoline motor oil? It's the #1 choice of Indy 500 chief mechanics, Daytona 500 chief mechanics, NHRA mechanics, and Baja 1000 mechanics. For use in their race cars and in their own cars. Any more questions? People who know use Valvoline.
Available at Thrifty Auto Supply and High School Pharmacy. Introducing, for a limited time, the Taco Bell Wild Tacos. As tasty as the originals, with one little difference. They're hot, man.
Introducing the new 1994 Acura Integra. Not since Hot Wheels has a car been this fun. Track sold separately. Come test drive the new Integra at your local Acura dealer.
As the aircraft pass the show center, let's wave to the crew. They can see you from the air. Let them know that we enjoy their performance today with the Federal Express Boeing 727.
The performers in this year's Rose Festival Air Show have come to Portland from all over the world. Unfortunately, they're used to flying in different kinds of weather.
This is different weather. That's a good way to put it. In shooting some of our close-up features of the performers, we were able to do a little bit of traveling ourselves. Our first story took us to Thompson Station, Tennessee, to meet a man who is a true Southern gentleman.
I think we're about ready.
That's Leo Loudenslager. Not even a conventional takeoff will do. With 7 national aerobatic championship titles and 1 world title to his name, this is one pilot who believes in pushing the envelope.
I don't think about it. Flying's flying. It's just me.
5 years ago, Leo was living the frenetic life of an East Coast pilot, but then he discovered the tranquility of Tennessee. With Civil War battlegrounds and gracious plantations virtually in his backyard, he's proud to take visitors on a scenic flight.
On your right side is the new GMC Saturn plant. That's Spring Hill, Tennessee, that you hear about in all the ads. And of course, now we're heading north, heading up towards the town of Franklin right now. Franklin, of course, being a site of really some pretty significant Civil War battle. It's just a very peaceful land, really.
But it was more than the atmosphere that drew Leo here.
About 80% of my shows fall within 3 hours flying time from here. It's very, very centralized.
And with 28 acres of land, Leo has been able to put in a 3,000-foot grass strip right next to the house.
Just to come home and land in your own backyard, get out and, go start up the grill and, have a beer, that's life. That's the pace we like to keep here.
But one thing about Leo, he doesn't sit still for long. His latest toy is a Kawasaki Ninja motorcycle, really more of a rocket on wheels.
You're just over there and it's there, and just with a flick of the throttle you can accelerate to a certain speed, or the brakes are so powerful you can just decelerate and flow right into another corner. It's amazing, and I'm glad that I live in 1993 and there's something that's that neat that I can enjoy riding. It will go 175 miles an hour, but I don't plan to be on it when it's doing it. You sneeze and it'll go over 100, and I've sneezed on it before, let's put it that way.
Another of his high-tech toys is his computer, which he not only uses to keep track of the 211 air shows he's in contact with, he also uses it to dream.
And now we'll go back to designing the airplane.
I went through a period really where I didn't feel inventive, and that's terribly important to me.
So now he works on designs for a 2-place aerobatic plane, one that will allow him to share his world with others.
It's so neat to take ideas to bed with you, well, you may not get a full night's sleep if you pop up at 3 o'clock in the morning when you say, that's what I've been searching for. By the same token, without it, there's something missing in life.
Voila.
Yes, but will it fly?
Oh, absolutely. You get anything going fast enough, it'll fly.
The airplane he flies at air shows, the Bud Light 200, began life as a Stevens Acro, but then Leo got his hands on it.
We like to kid ourselves and say we're on the leading edge of 1930s technology.
He removed the wings, cut the fuselage in half, and began rebuilding.
For instance, many people are very surprised to find out this is a wood wing. And the ailerons are fabric, and that's really the lightest combination.
To lighten the ailerons and increase the roll rate, Leo added spades, but his are unique. They float.
By having it work that way, I get a better feel in the neutral, which is very important when you come around to stop a maneuver.
Weighing in at only 850 pounds, nearly 50% of the Bud Light's weight is in the 220 horsepower Lycoming engine and the German-made wood and fiberglass propeller. Leo likens aerobatic flying to the performance of an ice skater. Each maneuver has a name, and his favorite is the computer roll.
Just a sequence of rolls linked together between ailerons, snap rolls, and so forth, and it goes double snap inside, full left, half right, half outside left, 3/4 right, 3/4 outside left, and boom, 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 boom. To pull that off, I suppose that's my double left. A lot of people say, well, why do you fly so hard? 95% of the people don't even know what you're doing out there. And I tell them I'm not flying for those. I'm flying for the 5% that might know. And if they appreciate it, then I know the other 95% are satisfied.
If you guys haven't seen this act, you've got to see this act. He is my favorite.
coming back down the show line out of a 5/8 loop, doing multiple rolls outlined against that dark sky. And takes the airplane right into the inverted position. Once again, lots of power going straight up, rotating the airplane as he climbs in the vertical, rolling the airplane all the way up. Coming off the top, rolling the airplane a half a turn on the way down. And a quarter turn back to put himself onto the show line. Two, three, and four. Very precise 4-point hesitation, 360-degree roll. The airplane going straight up, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 as he does 4-point roll on the way up. And when he gets to the top, he flies it 90-degree corner right off the top and does a snap roll coming down as he does a 90-degree turn right at the top of a vertical climb. Going up. Again, rotating the airplane. We're looking at the bottom of the airplane. He almost does the hammerhead. They sometimes call this the segmented hammerhead or the octagon hammerhead, where you actually do the hammerhead turn in 3 or 4 segments. And he does that beautifully. Listen to the sound of the extra 200. As Leo goes down the show line, snapping from one side to the other. Stick coming back. Airplane going straight up. Here come the rotations. Eventually, the airplane runs out of power, but it will continue to rotate and rotate now on the propeller. Look at the airplane has stopped, but it's still going around. This is what they call the torque roll, folks. And eventually, the weight of the engine will pull the nose down. He continues to spin the airplane as he comes out of the torque roll. Airplane twisting and turning. He calls this the lump maneuver. We kind of know it as the lump shabak, where he throws the airplane right out of control. Ladies and gentlemen, a champion aerobatic performance today by a legend now in the aerobatic and air show business, Mr. Leo Laudenslager.
Roger, an estimated 300,000 people are expected to attend this year's air show.
You know, that equates to one giant traffic jam, right?
Right.
Wrong. You know, the powers that be at TriMet have been working for months on a plan that will move thousands of spectators in and out of this area very smoothly.
Phil Cassidy joined the crowd to see just how the system works.
The big wheels at TriMet turned one of their buses into a rolling conference room back in May.
Which way would we go in that driveway and go out this way? Or?
I think so, yeah. I would like to come out this way, and then you have Brookwood right away.
On the days of the show, it was plain to see TriMet's shuttle system was planned out right and being used. But they forgot one thing. The system needed that going somewhere airport feel.
The red shuttle begins at Fujitsu and NEC. The green shuttle at Intel and Hawthorne Farms. The blue shuttle at the Hillsborough Transit Center. All shuttles are free.
Welcome aboard the TriMet shuttle and enjoy the air show.
How was you?
Great. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil Cassidy. Welcome to the TriMet shuttle with nonstop service to the Hillsborough Airport. Approximate time to the airport is about 5 minutes. We'll be cruising at an altitude of about 3.5 feet. Our captain today is Ben Fain. Everybody say hi to Ben. Hi, Ben. Great. Ben, you're famous. Today's trip is a small snack meal. We recommend that you eat a few of these goodies here and save the rest for later. It's such a big bag. In the unlikely event of a water landing, you'll be asked to get off the bus as soon as possible. There are exits, one to the back, one to the side, and one to the front. Thank you for choosing the TriMet shuttle this morning, and if your travel plans call for another trip to the Hillsborough Rose Festival Air Show, we ask that you take TriMet one more time. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for getting us to the gate safe and sound, Phil. But that's only the start of getting to the air show. The first order of business, getting inside. Next comes protection from the very thing you came to hear.
Here you guys, your earplugs. Oh, goody. Lucy, here's your earplugs.
And then pick up your stuff and head for the flight line.
The American Engineer.
It takes a lot of good stuff and a cooler to watch an air show.
Chips, pop, candy bars.
We got good old Mountain Dew.
Snacks.
We have pretzels and cookies and popcorn and sandwiches.
Chips, candy, sandwiches, usual.
Getting out here to get a decent spot to watch the show.
The coveted spots lie near the fence line, and people who get there first stake out their territory.
Okay, wait.
Despite rain clouds on the horizon, some people still have the optimism to put sunscreen on. People bring the usual stuff to air shows, you know, thermos, hats, sunglasses, and binoculars, as well as umbrellas, stowed away for rain, and useful for when the sun breaks through the clouds as well. But these days, people bring a lot of high technology, too. Everything from video cameras to two-way radios and scanners for listening to the pilots.
We get you a special, and you can go from there, or you can...
Even a shoe phone. But most people just bring their eyes and the enthusiasm that an air show inspires.
Oh, boy, look at all the souvenirs here.
Brad, I think you need one of these hats with a little bit of the scrambled eggs on them.
That sounds
Here,
like a
try
good
that
idea.
one on for size.
Get this on straight here. How's that?
When our coverage of the 93 Rose Festival Air Show continues, I'll introduce you to a group of women daredevils, the Shooting Stars.
And have you ever wondered what life on an aircraft carrier is like? Stay tuned as we embark upon an adventure aboard the USS Carl Vinson.
Your fighter pilot today is Lieutenant Tom Murata, call sign Quasi, from Cransford, New Jersey. The United States Navy presents the F-14 Tomcat and the Sound of Freedom. Now, from the right, at just under the speed of sound and having more fun than anyone should be allowed to have, the high-speed pass and zoom climb.
The F-14D, like this one, is one of the very few planes that is capable of taking off and landing on an aircraft carrier. To see how you bring a supersonic fighter in for a seagoing landing, we visited one of the Navy's Nimitz-class carriers off the coast of Southern California.
The USS Carl Vinson was commissioned in 1982. The 100,000-ton warship is named after the late Georgia congressman who is considered the father of our modern Navy. With a crew of over 5,000, the Vinson could be called a floating city. It has its own power plant, 2 nuclear reactors that could speed the ship through the water at over 30 knots, a desalinization plant that provides an adequate supply of fresh water, a health club for shipboard fitness. Needless to say, this city also has its own airport. We landed aboard the Vinson as it cruised off the coast of San Diego, California. Our visit came during an exercise called CQs, or Carrier Qualifications, where selected Navy and Marine pilots practice takeoffs and landings. Each pilot is required to make a set number of these before he or she is carrier qualified. Various types of planes were taking part. The A-6E Intruder, a low-level attack bomber. The FA-18 Hornet strike fighter. And the focus of our visit, the F-14D Tomcat. The Tomcat is the latest and most sophisticated fighter in the world. It's powered by 2 jet engines that produce over 60,000 pounds of thrust. That equates to a top speed of Mach 2, or 1,300 miles per hour. Tomcat pilot Lieutenant Tom Murata says it handles like a thoroughbred.
Well, the F-14 is although it's a large airplane as far as fighters or attack airplanes goes, very maneuverable, accelerates well, and in the D version with new improved engines, it's one of the premier superiority fighters in the world today. It can maneuver with the best of them out there. Even when you're taxiing around, you can feel the power because the airplane doesn't taxi like
like a Mercedes or a Cadillac. A taxi's like a Corvette or a race car. It feels like it wants to get up and go. It feels like you're riding a horse.
The deck of a carrier is considered one of the most dangerous places in the world. With jets taking off and landing literally feet away, it's easy to see why. As the planes prepare for takeoff, they are positioned by handlers who move around the aircraft while its jet engines are often at full power. Once the pilots have completed a mental checklist, they give the thumbs up for launching. They and their plane are then hurled off the deck, reaching a takeoff speed of 150 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. If you think all this looks difficult in broad daylight, you ought to try it at night.
Even with a nice moon, night landings are always a challenge, and I think you'll find any naval aviator will tell you the same. But there are varying levels of comfort based on how recently you've made a night landing. But I remember a little something about every night landing that I made on the ship.
According to Lieutenant Murata, the takeoffs are simple compared to bringing a 30-ton jet in for a landing.
Right now I have over 320 carrier landings, about 110 of those at night. And if I was to take one of these F-14s out there right now and go into the overhead and come into the landing pattern at the ship, I'd still get the nervous excitement that I got back on the first one. Once you find yourself out the ship, it's like going from the minor leagues to the major leagues, and it's for all the marbles. There's no mistakes.
Literally hundreds of people take part in the landing of these multi-million-dollar flying machines. Below deck, you find an air traffic control center where the planes are routed into position for landing. As their turn comes up, pilots call the ball, letting the landing officers know who they are, what kind of plane they're flying, how much fuel they have left, and other information that is used to assure the proper setting of the arresting gear.
So as you roll in the groove, you make the ball call. If we keep the ball in the center and the aircraft at the optimum approach speed, we'll impact the deck, and it really is an impact on the deck, about 15 feet in front of the number 3 wire. And at that point, the hook will engage the 3 wire at the proper angle of attack, and it'll bring the aircraft to a stop in about 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds. Immediately upon touchdown, you go to full power in the event that you don't hit the hook, or the hook breaks, or the wire breaks, or some other malfunction. So every time we land, we go to full military power, is what we call it, ready to go around again if the hook doesn't engage the wire.
The wire is actually a heavy steel cable that is used to stop the planes. There are a series of 4 in a space of about 50 yards, requiring the pilots to use the utmost accuracy. Once on deck, the taxi director guides them away so that the strip is clear for the next landing aircraft. Ideally, a plane should land every 45 seconds. The smooth operation of a ship this size demands the teamwork and cooperation of every sailor on board. It also requires a sense of pride for the ship and the job that each crew member does. It's one that we felt during our entire stay.
The total length of the Vincent's deck is almost 1,100 feet. You know, that's over 3 football fields long.
Wow, and you know the cable that catches the planes must be tremendously strong to stop those powerful jets over and over again.
Well, actually, the cable is good for about 100 landings, and then it's replaced for safety reasons.
Well, road safety is, of course, one of the primary concerns for the Shooting Stars parachute team. Together since 1984, these 4 ladies have made thousands of jumps, and even though they appear to be having a lot of fun, you can bet that safety is their top priority.
Hi, my name is Debbie Willett.
Hi, I'm Janine Marcacci.
I'm Dawn Menard.
I'm Kathy Orlando.
4 good friends, 4 experienced skydivers known in the airshow circuit as the Shooting Stars Precision Parachute Team.
To our first real demo of the season. Woo! Blue skies!
Our guys.
It looks too cheap. Yeah. It's like a bordello. Doesn't it?
Weekends begin with them huddled at a house near Davis, California.
I've been talking to Revo, and they've offered us, for right now, only a product-only sponsorship, and we have to pick out our sunglasses.
They made those pink ones.
All of us are very good friends and have been for a long time, you know, prior to the team.
So you want to pick one that has the little purple dot over here.
That one's purple lenses.
Because those will match our gear.
I think it's really pretty unique that here we are, all these women, and we've been together for 6 years.
This is my first choice.
Okay, that's Deb.
And then...
So we each have a different
I knew
choice.
it would
How are
be
we going
that
to make
way.
a decision here?
We're four very different people, and sometimes when it comes down to, deciding about clothes or color combinations, we definitely debate a lot.
If we go shopping, we could look for a sunglass place too, and try some of these on first, if we can find them.
Right here.
Oh, okay, Revo, there they are.
Oh, those are nice.
It's like going out with, your sisters or something.
Let's see, trade. What's the best one?
Debbie's always wanted to have the more racy kind of stuff, and Janine wants the more elegant, and we kind of meet in the middle, so.
What brought these women together in the first place was a love for skydiving, a sport they practice at a Northern California diving mecca known as Skydance.
Very slow, just walk it out.
Ready, set,
Slow.
go! It's a great place. I mean, I'd say it's probably the best place, personally, that I have ever jumped at.
They head to the sky to practice the canopy relative work they are best known for. But along the way, they share a few secrets about each other.
Deb's really our free spirit, wild lady,
Not to mention the only one who carries a troll for good luck.
Janine is the angel of the team. She's, pure. Don's the Canadian of the team.
Kathy's the original California woman.
Each has made in excess of 1,500 jumps. Wild Woman Debbie more than 1,800. Each has been part of at least one skydiving world record, including an all-female world record canopy stack.
I take my chances. I don't mind working without a net. I take my chances. I take my chances every chance I get.
As they approach terra firma, they go into their exhilarating downplane formation, reaching speeds of up to 50 miles per hour and loving it. They're up early the next morning, preparing for a performance.
We got the smokes, Deb's got the suitcase, gear, streamer bag, sunscreen, sunglasses. You have your jacket. Bye, Stein. See you later, dude. Okay, just follow me, okay? Here's where we're going to end up, right here.
Here is the Sonoma Valley Airport and a private birthday party for Ray Dolby. Dolby Sound.
And they shut down the whole airport and invited a bunch of guests.
I'd like to introduce our performers.
And hired some of the best airshow acts in the West Coast, certainly.
And Wayne Hanley and the ever-lovely Shooting Stars.
We're usually kind of the center of attention as far as, all the guys that are at the air show and stuff.
All the people are starting to get in the stands. Good.
And we have, a great time. Just get a lot of attention for the weekend. And like I said, it's kind of like being queen for a day.
And the skydivers are out, ladies and gentlemen.
We all love to skydive, for one thing. And we all love each other a lot. And we love to be part of the air show industry, which is just an honor. You want to do a good job. You want to make sure that that the people see you in the best light. You want it to look professional, but you also want it to be different or spectacular. I have heard people gasp and say, oh, they really are girls. Oh my goodness. And people can't believe it.
And we'll see those traditional, gentle, stand-up shooting star landings.
It's doing something I love with my girlfriends and making a success out of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to Ray Dolby.
this morning, are you? Okay, you guys. Woo, 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 woo! Blue skies. Ice cream. Woo! Blue skies, paradise. Woo!
Hey, jumpers are away.
The shooting stars are very proficient at an unusual aspect of skydiving called crew, or building canopy formations. And what they're hoping to do for us today is only possible with a consistent group who jump together regularly. Canopy formations built by women are quite rare. Less than 30% of all active skydivers are women, and less than 10% of all skydivers ever build canopy formations. Building canopy formations involves bringing the open parachutes together until they can actually link up in the air. The women fly their parachutes together until they're touching, and the top person grabs the leading edge of the bottom parachute with her hands and then hooks her feet behind the middle lines and slides down the lines. You know, this requires precise maneuvering and timing so that the flying capabilities of each parachute is not affected to the point that it might collapse. And weather also can play havoc with these hookups, as the parachute can collapse and wrap around the others if the air is too turbulent. Well, they're into side-by-sides and then downplanes. You'll notice in that downplane, they really start to move towards the ground in a big hurry. They can get up to speeds of 60 miles per hour on those downplanes. So they went from the biplane to the side-by-side into the downplane. And now, as they split up, they're going to land right in front of us.
Thank you. That was a blast.
Don't go away. When we come back, we'll meet the members of a three-plane precision aerobatic team, the Sierra Aces.
His dad was a U.S. Army general, and Buzz himself graduated from West Point.
I was in the class of 1956, and Storm and Normie was a classmate of mine, who I knew pretty well.
But one fateful day, Buzz visited an Air Force base and tagged along with the hotshot young pilots.
I was hooked. I mean, you could not have kept me out of the Air Force for anything in the world. I wanted to do that so bad.
So Buzz spent 23 years in the Air Force, flying the F-4 in Vietnam and being the first to fly the A-10 Warthog. He retired a colonel. That's Buzz's story. Now, what is it Steve would say here?
Cut.
In another hangar at Mojave, we catch up with Sierra Ace number 3, also an ex-military fighter pilot, Mike Van Wagenen. Mike's company is helping develop the BD-10, a personal jet.
Has a 30-foot fuselage and a 20-foot wingspan, and it's got a very similar design as high-speed, high-performance military jets along the lines of the F-15, the F-18.
Something Mike is very familiar with. In the Air Force, he flew 359 fighter missions, 170 of those over North Vietnam. After that, he headed to California.
I was an instructor in the Top Gun school for 3 years at Nellis, and also went through the school at Miramar, and did a lot of test flying in that, during that time too. Did a lot of test flying on the F-15 and the F-16, and at the time was known as the F-17, which evolved into the F-18.
Today, Mike is doing the test flying on the BD-10 prototype, hoping to bring it to market soon.
Single engine, this is the tailpipe of the engine, and this is where all the thrust comes out. This is the fire-breathing hole here, and as I mentioned to you, it's an off-the-shelf General Electric J85 engine with about 3,000 pounds of thrust.
Now, what is it Steve would say here?
Cut.
Whoops, let's back up. Almost forgot to ask Mike how he would describe Steve.
I don't think I'd describe him necessarily as gregarious or outgoing. Steve is very methodical.
Thank you. So, Steve, the spotlight is now on you.
Does this really happen in the movies?
Steve Brower is a commercial pilot by trade, but years ago, after logging 10,000 hours, admitted his one fear.
Actually, I was ashamed of myself because I feared inverted flying.
So Steve forced himself to learn aerobatics.
First time out, I was just as green as you could imagine for a few days afterwards.
Really?
Oh, it was tough.
But Steve persisted in learning aerobatics and formation flying. And because he had so enjoyed team sports in high school and college, he dreamed of being part of an aerobatic team. Over time, he bought the 3 red, white, and blue pits, hooked up with Buzz and Mike, and is living his dream today.
it takes a lot of communication and understanding each other, and just a simple join-up, or what appears to be simple. There's a lot of dynamics involved to get back right away, so you can be right back in front of show center again. He's very, very good wingman. Now he's our leader, but you have to be a good wingman to really understand and do a good job as a leader.
Because when we're flying formation, he is our world. He is 18 inches away from us, and that's all we focus on.
I watch birds fly formation a lot, and you know, birds. We have a lot to learn from birds.
As long as there is the atmosphere, and as long as there is gravity, there will be an infatuation with flight.
That's an infatuation Steve Brower, Buzz Lynch, and Mike Van Wagenen share.
There's a number of things that go together that make a good formation team. It's the camaraderie, it's the experience, it's the focus and the desire to do it as best as it possibly can be done.
What more can we say?
Cut.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Sierra Aces taking off again, and the snap rolls right off the takeoff. Steve Brower, being the lead pilot, will be calling the maneuvers. Again, the three airplanes are side by side, and when they get to the top of that vertical climb, Steve Brower will call hammerhead now. And at precisely the same time, all three aircraft do the hammerhead turn. Rolling the airplanes with 2-quarter rolls coming down to meet at show center. And 1 and 2, 3, 4. The number 1 and 2 aircraft doing the opposing 4-point rolls, going straight up, rotating the airplane. The little 260 horsepower Pitts isn't going to fly any higher, folks. It's going to end, but it's still rotating on the old prop. And look at it, still rotating as it falls back down through the smoke in the torque roll. As they climb in front of us, the lead aircraft, Steve Brower, will call for the split as they do the up bomb burst. Mike is flying upside down. The number 3 aircraft, flown by Buzz Lynch, will be tucked in underneath. And the number 1 plane, Steve Brower, will be doing the barrel rolls around the other two, the barber pole roll. Out of the 180-degree turn, the 3 aircraft will come back to show center and perform the maneuver that the military calls the tuck under brake, which is actually a tuck under brake to a landing. The Sierra Aces, the lead pilot, Steve Brower from Ramona, California, the number 2 airplane. On the left wing, Buzz Lynch out of Oceanside, California, and flying the right wing from Chesterfield, Missouri, Mike Van Wagenen.
I'd like to thank all the people from Portland that came out to watch us, and they're a real great group.
Imagine being in control of an entire air show, knowing that pilots on the ground and in the air are waiting for your next set of instructions before they proceed. Lars Larson met the man who's responsible for keeping things moving smoothly, the man in charge.
Okay, 2 ships is fine, and if you could give me a high speed coming out, so be sure and tell that guy to land. He's got another act later on, and we'd like you to sneak out of the south corner. We've done this a lot and know that these things can be done. No afterburner. We're going to do the Canadian anthem.
A headset or a telephone stays glued to his ear for nearly the entire length of the Rose Festival Air Show.
My name is Bob Simpkins. I'm the Director of Air Operations, and thanks very much for coming to the show. We appreciate it.
Since day 1 of the show 6 years ago, Flightcraft Charter Manager Bob Simpkins has called the shots. He's behind the scenes, making sure everything comes off as planned, beginning with the pilot briefing. Today's big concern, weather.
Today, hopefully, is the worst of it. There is a weak front that will be moving through today, in which we can expect rain showers and possibly a chance of thunder showers this afternoon.
So Simpkins and the pilots appeal to a higher authority.
Heavenly Father, we just ask for your protective hand today to be upon each of the pilots, each of their ground crews, and on all the spectators. We pray for your safety, and we pray for good weather.
We will change the schedule and keep you appraised as we go along, but there are going to have to be some adjustments because of the low ceiling and low visibility right now.
But Mother Nature plays a joke on Portland by proving that a Rose Festival event can deliver the wet stuff to just about any month, even July.
You got to come out here in January. We have the nicest sunshine.
Simpkins' job, tell the folks up in the tower when to bring in each performer.
You copy?
But on a day like today, weather shuts down nearly every act he has. Except for the one-man gyrocopter.
Have the gyrocopter stand by in case we get this kind of weather again, and that's the only thing we're able to launch, you bet. Right now, I wish I had the Oscar Mayer wiener wagon. We could run him up and down a couple of times, give him something.
Finally, the weather clears enough for the F-15s, the cartoon-like GB, and the stealth fighter, which flies almost anywhere, anytime.
Okay, no jumpers, you guys. The girls aren't going to go up.
Bob, this time.
Yeah, Don, go.
We got the KC-135 here a little early, and so he won't be just burning gas. We're going to put him in front of the Bud Light after the A-10.
Okay, sounds good. We are dancing.
All year round, Bob Simpkins simply makes sure that Flightcraft's airplanes can get people from point A to point B. But today and this weekend, the people sit still, and Bob makes the airplanes perform for them.
It's fun to entertain that many people.
Next up on Magic in the Air 93, we'll look at some planes that are just as exciting sitting on the ground as they are in the air.
And I'll take you on a behind-the-scenes tour of the Snowbirds' home base in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Moving out onto the runway at the other end of the field, the large bomber aircraft moving out there right now is the A-26 Douglas Invader. There aren't a whole bunch of them left in the condition you see here today, which is about as original as you're going to get. The A-26 was classified as a light bomber, is powered by two Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines. Listen to the sound of the beautiful Mustang. You know, the Mustang was an airplane that had its design conceived in the early 1940s. When they married the design to the Packard-built Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, that's when the Mustang came into its own and became one of the, probably was, the premier fighter escorter of World War II. The whole thing was designed, built, and flown in less than 90 days. And it is as popular with airshow crowds today as it was with the pilots who flew it in the war. If you look way off to your right, you will see just making a turn in over the trees is the Constellation, the Lockheed Constellation. Gorgeous aircraft, and many of you who have been around air shows and aviation in years gone by will remember seeing a lot of these airplanes. Used to see them around the airports and the terminals, because they were used by many airlines around the world. They were also used by both the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force as military transport planes. The very distinctive tri-tail fin Super Constellation.
Nothing like cooking up a few hundred burgers, America's favorite food, right,
Yeah,
Rod?
you think of American original. So we got a hamburger coming up here, folks.
Whoa.
The headliners of this year's U.S. Bank Rose Festival Air Show are the Canadian Snowbirds, a 9-member precision flying team.
I flew north to the province of Saskatchewan and had the pleasure of visiting their base of operations and meeting these courageous flyers of the Canadian skies. Thousands of tiny voices cry out from this desolate land as the very first tinges of pink hit the early morning sky. The rumble of a freight train. The whine of tires on a deserted highway. 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 The whine This is the Canadian province of Saskatchewan, the town of Moose Jaw, home to the snowbirds. At 6:30 in the morning, as these Canada Air CT-114 Tudor jet trainers are rolled out of the hangar at the Canadian Forces Base, 12 pilots file into a briefing room.
Good morning, all.
They have been chosen from among hundreds of Canadian military pilots to serve a 2-year stint as members of this aerobatic squadron.
8-plane show this morning. We'll plan on a high show. Weather shouldn't be a factor. 020 at 5 for the wind, slight and variable.
Through the frigid months of winter, they have trained for this day, the last practice before setting off on tour, doing 74 performances in 54 cities.
That's it. Any questions?
You don't have to take a picture with my big beanie on.
The other half of the snowbird team has been tending the flock. One highly skilled technician is assigned to each airplane.
Welcome to the 1993 Canadian Forces Snowbirds Formation Demonstration.
Their show is an aerial ballet. A ballet that begins with the snowbird's trademark, the condor formation.
Like when I hear the music and the airplanes and all those 9 lights and the smoke comes on, I think of everybody that did that today, but I also think of everybody that's done that for the last 22 years.
Snowbird 6, Chris Granley, comes from a family of pilots. His brother Ross flew with the Snowbirds 3 years ago, and Father Bud Granley is well known on the airshow circuit.
From my perspective, I just kind of sit in the same place and make the airplane stay there and the world goes around.
And it's easy to do that in the Tudor. First built in the mid-1960s, the Tudor is the trainer in which every Canadian Forces pilot earns their wings.
It's kind of like a little sports car, like the little MG was 20 years ago. It's a really relatively simple airplane to fly, relatively slow, but highly maneuverable and just a lot of fun to be in.
Snowbird 1, Major Dean Ranke, says that means the audience doesn't have to strain to see the show. The only strain is on the pilots.
In the formation, we will pull up to 3.5, 4G, sometimes 5, and pushing in some of the cockpits will push up to -2, 2.5.
In that case, you're just kind of hanging in your straps. If you didn't have any straps, it'd be out the canopy, out the top. All the blood rushes to your hair, to your head.
With positive G's, blood rushes away from the brain, and to keep from passing out, the pilots practice a strange auditory ritual.
Well, it's kind of embarrassing. You wouldn't want to sit here and listen to me doing it, but it's like a pig grunting, basically.
It's a demanding show. The Tudors rolling within 3 feet of each other in perfect unison.
It's 26 minutes of pure concentration the entire time that we're flying.
Back on terra firma, it's the technicians' show. Technicians, too, are handpicked for a 2-year stint with the Snowbirds. It is they who keep this show in the air.
We have to follow kind of a preventive maintenance attitude where we have to anticipate malfunctions rather than wait for them to actually break and then fix them.
That's because the Snowbirds travel only with the technicians and the spare parts they can carry on the show planes. Crew Chief Joe Millette says it's a far cry from the world of the Blue Angels, where planes full of spare parts tour with the team.
I think they feel envious of us. I think they think we have more of a hands-on.
Perhaps it's an intimacy with the planes and a pure love of the sky that sets the Snowbirds apart. It creates a feeling of pride Sergeant Millette can't contain.
That side of it itself is something that I'll take to my grave and I'll share with every Canadian who's willing to listen. It's just it's the best thing since sliced bread, for sure.
The main attraction of any air show is, of course, the performers flying high in the skies above the crowd.
But you know, for many, the thrill of being able to see the planes up close is just as exciting. The static display area at this year's show enabled thousands to view a great collection of flying machines.
This is the chief pilot. Got to get the headset locked in there.
The static display area of the Rose Festival Air Show lets people get up close and personal with some of the aircraft that they came to see.
It's all locked in, hands on the controls, and away you go.
Rolls the airplane 360 degrees, does a series of rolls.
Literally dozens of different planes and helicopters have been parked along one runway, and nearly every one comes equipped with someone to answer questions.
All the rescue people or anything, did they ever get scared?
Oh, yeah. This thing will float, though. We have on the sides of the helicopter, there's these big balloons that come out. You can see there's these and they'll keep the helicopter floating for a couple of hours, and hopefully your friends come and get you another helicopter or something.
Kids can present the biggest challenge by asking some of the toughest questions.
How many people have you rescued on this helicopter?
On this specific helicopter?
Yes,
oh, I couldn't give you, I don't know. Quite a few, actually. But exact number, I wouldn't want to make one up for you there.
Kids seem to be the biggest fans of the static display.
What do you think of that? Would you like to fly that?
Uh-huh.
And for many of them, it becomes a hands-on experience.
Wear it there. If it gets too sunny out, you just put the visor down over your eyes, keep the sun out. Talk to your communications, talk to your air crew, plug it in, strap yourself in.
For others, an old plane brings back old memories.
I flew the Navy version of this bird back when it was released in the Vietnam era, and my first landing was on a round-bottom Canadian ship, and I had about 4 feet in front and 4 feet in back. This bird is really maneuverable.
A younger fan comes dressed for the part and wants to know how the pararescue guys do it.
What we have there is our medical equipment. Guys dressed in orange are military paramedics. We're fairly highly trained with our medical equipment. We're trained parachutists, we're mountain climbers, and scuba divers.
What is the green stuff in the back?
That green stuff is our parachutes and our bush suits. We have bush suits so we can put them on if we have to parachute into the trees so we don't get hurt.
The formation flying you are seeing today.
With the first appearance of the Canadian snowbirds at this year's Rose Festival show, Canada has a strong presence, with airplanes in the sky and on the ground. The static display has something for everyone, from military planes to civilian planes, from old planes to new planes, from very, very big planes to very small planes.
Come on out and we'll get you trained.
Complete with a sales pitch.
Some of the options are that it has a rocket-assisted ballistic parachute to save the pilot and the aircraft in the event of any type of an emergency. It flies like a conventional airplane. It has full 3-axis control, and it's very strong. It has a 9G positive, 6G negative load factor so that it can handle turbulence, crosswinds, and do mild aerobatics.
Yes, the static display area provides a place to learn and a place to dream about flying.
There you go. They're flying.
Well, believe it or not, Elaine, we're halfway through the show already. And we still, of course, have more thrills and excitement on the way, so stick around.
And when we come back, you'll learn more about an odd-looking little plane that streaks through the sky at hundreds of miles per hour, the GB.
And I'll take you to Salt Lake City, Utah to introduce you to the Red Knight, a pilot whose performance puts him through forces of up to 7 Gs.
And you'll meet Lori Lynn Ross, a Hollywood stuntwoman who enjoys performing on the wing of an airplane as well as the silver screen.
Then you go to Seattle and you wait for an hour and a half. Then you go to Chicago and you wait for 2 hours, and then you go to where you wanted to go. That's nuts. I mean, you can get in your own airplane and be there.
Neibauer does more than just thinking about putting people in their own planes. He's created one of the hottest small planes in America. Neibauer sells them just as fast as his staff in Central Oregon can crate them up. That's right, crate them up. A do-it-yourself plane. Some assembly required. Washington County home builder Steve Bleak got into small planes a few years ago. Business forced him to travel to Seattle regularly. He says airlines failed to meet his schedule.
Hi, Tom. I had the problem with the incident angle. Remember yesterday getting that set up? Doesn't look so bad this morning. I changed the...
Did the flap make a difference?
I don't think it was that. I think it changed the tolerance on the smart level.
Steve Bleak, the home builder, figures he can finish building his own plane within a month or two.
It's starting to look like an airplane.
Starting to look like an airplane.
How long has it taken to get to this point?
Well, we started on March 24th of last year, and the first little bit took us a long time.
Our airplanes, I think, are on the cutting edge of aviation.
Lance Neibauer says his planes belie the old image of so-called kit planes.
There was the notion that it was the garage tinkerer, and there were these crazy people off on the weekends doing these things, flying in airplanes they built themselves, and it's not that at all anymore.
But it's too tight.
In fact, Lancair makes its airplanes from high-technology carbon fiber composite. That's the same stuff used in the stealth bomber. No other private plane maker in America uses the stuff. That high-tech skin gives the Lancair 4 a big advantage over all other planes. Low weight, high strength, and no rivets like aluminum planes.
It's a very slick airplane, so it slides through the air.
In the air, that means a very fast plane.
This will go somewhere around 330 miles per hour compared to around less than 200 miles per hour for the same comparable airplane.
And that comparable plane doesn't really compare to the Lancer at all when it comes to price.
A new Beech comparable airplane cost somewhere between $285,000 and $325,000. We'll have about $150,000, $160,000 invested in this airplane when we're ready to fly.
We set a record with the 4 over Christmas, just for the heck of it. I mean, we can set records every day if we want, but they get expensive too. The record was San Francisco to Los Angeles, 53 minutes. Airliners don't do that. But the best part is it's a 4-seat airplane, a big, comfortable one. We burned 18 gallons of gas doing it at 27,000 feet.
Neubauer doesn't count on putting a plane in every garage. After all, $150,000 and fuel at a couple of bucks a gallon still doesn't pencil out for most average folks. But for business...
Anytime you can outrun the airliners, carry 4 people, and do it on the kind of low fuel burn we use, that makes it a business tool.
Can you imagine sitting behind the controls of this thing?
Well, that's going to be a scary thing.
Yeah?
You know, we're used to flying small airplanes and at 150 miles an hour, and we get in this thing, it's going to be a brand new experience for us. So we're going to have to baby up to that. If you want to take 3 or 4 years to build just the most wonderful airplane you can possibly imagine, I think Lancer is the best.
At one time or another, we've all had to put up with noisy neighbors. You know, the ones who refuse to quiet down no matter how nice you ask them.
Well, imagine living right next door to the Hillsborough Airport come air show time. No matter how loudly you complain about the noise, it's simply not going to go away. Well, our own Phil Cassidy has this story about some sensitive Rose Festival officials and how they handled the decibel overload.
Home sweet home, this is not. Not when lift plus drag has been known to flame out on occasion at air shows. Some people along Hillsborough's flight path are asked to take flight themselves each year, and for safety's sake, they do. They moved out by the truckload before the weekend. Everything in harm's way was relocated, man and beast. It was time to make like a stealth fighter and disappear. Okay, I'm standing here at the relocation boundary. This post represents the dividing line. Now, if you're on this side of the fence, you don't have to move. If you're on this side of the fence, you gotta move. Okay? Gotta move. Okay? Gotta move. It's the sign of the times for local business as well. They are vectored out of the area too. Most employees at tank liners were gone Friday afternoon or on their way out. It was tough to leave a prime viewing spot.
Yeah, they would be the best seats in the house. The very first year that the Blue Angels were in town, we were lucky enough to kind of be able to be on site. But they don't really like us doing that, so we help them out.
Friday at the Brass Horn restaurant, the staff was busy preparing meals for airshow pilots and their crews. The Brass Horn had the weekend off because the table in Hillsborough has been set for magic in the air, not fine dining. Fighter jets have a way of ruining the atmosphere.
As far as an enjoyable meal, I think your plates would be dancing off the table, the silverware would be moving, your drinks would be shaking a little bit. They fly, it seems like pretty close. They're quite a ways up, but the engine noise is enough to move the building.
So, where are all these people going? Well, various places. Some get out of town, some go to the air show. There have been rumors over the years that the locals have been moved to exotic places to compensate for their inconvenience. Like this place, for instance. Where are we, gang? Hawaii! Hawaii. I guess that explains this little umbrella in my drink.
Would you like a lei, Mr. Cassidy?
A lei? Why, certainly. Hawaii, right, Carl?
Absolutely.
Aloha.
Aloha.
You'll be witnessing a flyby of the world's first operational stealth fighter. The F-117A dropped 2,000 tons of precision-guided munitions during 1,300 sorties and scored over 1,600 direct hits in 400 target locations while at Desert Storm.
The F-15 Eagles of the Oregon Air National Guard. The F-15 Eagle is an all-weather, extremely maneuverable tactical fighter aircraft designed to gain and maintain air superiority in aerial combat.
The AV-8B Harrier. This airplane never ceases to amaze. Those movable exhaust nozzles can be directed to the aft position for conventional flight and the intermediate position for short takeoff and landings, and fully down for the vertical flight.
One of the world's most heavily armed and armored close air support aircraft, the rugged and dependable A-10 Thunderbolt II. Because of its toughness, tenacity, and staying power, the people who know it best, the pilots and mechanics who fly and maintain it, have unofficially dubbed it the Warthog. It's this remarkable maneuverability that enables the A-10 to perform its close air support mission. Twisting and turning low over the battlefield, it can deliver devastating firepower to destroy targets close to friendly ground forces.
The B-52 Stratofortress. Look at that magnificent airplane with those 8 big engines and that huge wing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the KC-135 Stratotanker. It operates at near supersonic speeds and at altitudes above 40,000 feet. These characteristics allow aircraft to be refueled without slowing or descending to lower altitudes where jet engines burn fuel much more rapidly.
The F-16 Fighting Falcons of the Oregon Air Guard passing by in review.
You know, Rod, being a pilot himself, just couldn't resist the temptation of jumping into the nearest F-4 Phantom jet. So hopefully he'll be doing a little bit of a flyby for us. Whoa, nice plane, Rod. Not exactly what I had in mind, but flying the F-16 Fighting Falcon certainly takes a lot of practice. Now, of the 3 Air National Guard training sites or schoolhouses around the country where the pilots learn, only one teaches air-to-air combat. The Air Guard calls it the 114th Fighter Squadron, but the pilots who fly at Kingsley Field in Klamath Falls, Oregon, know it as the land of no slack.
I'm from Peoria, Illinois.
Outside of Detroit, Michigan.
I'm from Duluth, Minnesota. Burlington, Vermont. Niagara Falls, New York.
It's coming down pretty fast.
For an intercept-type mission of 11,000 feet today.
Maggot 1, threat east 4. Contact.
We run a air combat tactics course.
Copy, sights on, sights on.
You have to want to fly airplanes here. You have to want to be here, and you have to battle to get here.
Okay, round out. A little more, a little more.
I'm Colonel Steve Harper. I'm the commander of the base here at Kingsley Field. We moved in here and first started this mission, this training mission. First class was in February of '83.
They looked at different places around the country, and Kingsley was especially attracted because about 2 years prior to that, the Air Force had just moved out. There was a big runway. There was a flying environment.
Here we go. He's coming in low. Never did find the runway. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jim Markham, the 114th Fighter Squadron. We carry 5 courses, anything from a long course, which takes a baby pilot right out of the system who's simply jet qualified, not fighter qualified, and right on through to a short course where we simply top a guy off who hasn't been in the cockpit in a while. This is his first landing in the F-16. So he's really concentrating on runway alignment and speed. Speed's what's critical. Too much, he can scrape the tail.
Set, that's all right. We didn't touch down too bad.
For a first landing, that was good.
Okay, engine instruments check good. Speed brakes are in. I'm looking for 180 knots.
looking north. They're ready. Also, let's go flights on cameras on Rio. Your snap 340 for 29 miles. 2 bend at single group kill.
Copy, flights on, single group over, full maneuvering.
2 same, Angels 30. Go for it. We killed us at 35,000? Yeah. Lights on. Your snap 340, 28 miles. 2 bandits. You're the bogeys this time.
The Oregon Air National Guard, that's the finest Air Force in the world. You don't wander through Klamath Falls. You have to want to be here. You have to want to fly airplanes here. They're the finest in the world, without a doubt, no question.
Nice touchdown, real nice.
Boy, Elaine, you got us some good seats over here. Enjoying the air show?
Not half bad, huh,
Really
Ron?
good, isn't it? When we come back, our look at the 1993 U.S. Bank Rose Festival Air Show. The GB was originally conceived to compete in the air racing world of the 1930s. The plane that is flying here today is a hand-built replica.
It streaks through the skies at about 300 miles per hour.
There's really not one airplane I can think of in the history of aviation that had more myths about it, more stories, more stuff written than the GB. It was a minimum airplane. I mean, minimum control area, minimum stabilizer area, minimum wing area, everything they do, because it was built for one thing, that was just to go fast.
This airplane was built like a plow. It was built by a bunch of farm boys, and it was built to go 300 miles an hour, which was as fast as anybody had gone in 1932. That was high tech. Every part of the airplane is overbuilt. It was built really stiff because they were just getting into flutter problems then, and they didn't quite understand it. So stiffness is what they built in, and strength. I've got everything ready to go, I think. Okay. Is that how you plumbed it in there before?
Yeah.
Into this thing?
Right. And
Oh,
then,
let's go.
okay. Have fun,
All I gotta
lucky
say
dog.
is have fun, Del, and be careful. I envy you, I'll tell you. I was about 25 years old.
What was that? If I was careful, I would have never built a GB.
Okay, want to try her hot?
Okay, hot and brakes.
I was wondering if I was ever really going to see a GB in my lifetime, and now I am.
The sound of this engine turns 100 octane into adrenaline and noise. It's fun to fly, but it's a challenge. You need to pay attention every minute. You can't relax. The landings are basically not fun. They're kind of intense.
Get the nice, smooth flare down. Right, good, it's leveled off. He's got her. He's got it.
That's going to go around.
There.
He's doing it. He's going to do it. He's been there before.
Get off the power. Off the power.
Right. Good! All the stories about the airplane were basically true. It is unstable. It's unstable in pitch and yaw. That doesn't intimidate me. It just needs a pilot. As long as you pay attention and fly it, it's not a problem. I forgot to put my earplugs in.
I can't believe it.
Did you check the exhaust?
Meeting Pete Miller, who is one of the original designers of the airplane, was probably one of the most rewarding experiences.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Wonderful.
Here. Look at the airplane.
Sure did. It's wonderful.
This guy was so nice, took us in to his home and just made us have a whole new goal in the project, and that was to build the airplane, prove that it flies, and then take it back and show Pete. Because here's a guy that had lived the last 60 years with stories progressively getting worse and worse and worse about the airplane, and everything printed and called them death traps, the flying barrel killer, and all this other stuff.
Here he comes.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy.
Gypsy swing. Oh,
Wow.
isn't that wonderful?
Don't fall over now.
Say, this has been wonderful, wasn't it?
Certainly was, Pete. And I'm so glad you saw it. Oh.
You're watching Delmar Benjamin in the GB replica. That's a 550 horsepower engine and a little bit of airplane built around it. And you can see him yawing back and forth because that's the only way you can see forward from this airplane is to yaw and look out the side, yaw the other way and look out the side, because all he can see in a straight line is that huge nose and that great big propeller going around.
Okay, the GB is taxiing out right now. He's going to give us something. Outstanding. Let's do it. Make it so.
Ladies and gentlemen, taking off from your right is the incredible GB, and what an airplane that is. 60 years ago, the GB Racer set the world speed record at 298.6 miles per hour. Delmar Benjamin, the man who is flying that airplane today, enlisted the help of master aircraft builder and airshow pilot Steve Wolf. Steve built an exact replica of the GB-R2. This replica is built to the exact specifications of the original. Frequently, it is dubbed the Widowmaker because, as you can see, it is not very aerodynamic. It was built for speed. It glides like a stone. Delmar is a dryland farmer from Shelby, Montana, and he soloed at the age of 16, and he was also a member of the Northern Knights as he comes through in knife edge flight now, flying the GB on the fuselage. The wings of that airplane no longer providing lift. The only lift he's getting is what he's getting off the tail and the fuselage, and the power of that 550 horsepower engine keeping the airplane flying. Delmar has logged more hours in a GB than any other pilot, living or dead, including Jimmy Doolittle, who won the coveted Thompson Trophy and set a world speed record in the original at 296.287 miles per hour. Isn't that an incredible looking airplane? A barrel with a propeller on the front. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you wave to Delmar Benjamin in the incredible GB replica. And boy, you can see that Delmar is really crammed into that cockpit, isn't he? There isn't a whole lot of room in there.
Almost everyone is familiar with the Spruce Goose, Howard Hughes' gigantic flying machine. Well, recently, an Oregon company bought the Goose and is planning to display it in nearby McMinnville. But that's another story. The one that we want to tell you about now is the incredible journey that the Goose made just to get here.
And now for Mr. Hughes' surprise. As the enormous craft approaches her 95-mile-an-hour takeoff speed, the pilot lifts her onto the step and holds her there as she races through the choppy sea. And with a final drive of her engines, 200 tons are airborne. 5 months.
The whole world watched as millionaire Howard Hughes took his Spruce Goose into the air for the first and only time. But that flight was the shortest and probably easiest of the journeys that the famous flying boat would take during its life. It took years of work and millions of dollars to build the plane, formerly known as the Hughes Kaiser Flying Boat No. 1. But Hughes built the pieces miles away from the water. In June of 1946, crews finished the massive hull and wings at the Culver City, California construction site. The move to Long Beach took 2 days. Workers cut thousands of electric and telephone lines along the route. Police officers from 10 cities guarded the airplane during its trip. The Goose went into a warehouse for a time, Hughes died, and the new owners put the world's largest airplane on display. The Goose would never fly again, but the biggest move of its life came at the ripe old age of 50.
Take webbing, I go come around this steel cradle, whatever that design may turn out to be.
Half a century later, workers from Evergreen Aviation began taking apart an airplane that was never designed to be disassembled. And workers loaded the famous flying boat on an ordinary barge for its longest trip. Wrapped in plastic, the giant plane traveled 987 miles up the California and Oregon coast, arriving at the port of Astoria 5 days later.
We're looking at the Spruce Goose, and we've seen it for about 10 seconds, and now it's buried in the fog out there.
Talking to the skipper, it's one of the smoothest trips he's had up the coast. It was dead calm almost all the way.
Early in the evening on October 18th, the Goose arrives in Portland. Because of heavy rains and high river levels, nearly 2 months passed before the Goose started the final leg of its journey up the Willamette River. With the wings standing on edge, the river locks at Oregon City were still a tight fit for the Goose. At a spot near Dayton, Oregon, the barge finally comes to ground at a specially built road.
Real easy. Let's get another line off of Wally's truck and pull straight in.
For the final move to its new home in McMinnville, Evergreen Aviation chose Emmert International of Clackamas, Oregon. The company moves whole buildings and holds the record for the largest single-piece building move in the world. Just as it did during its move from Culver City to Long Beach, the Goose closed roads when it came through. After nearly 2 days, the Goose rolls down the road into McMinnville, greeted by thousands of people. And a salute from the Evergreen International Vintage Air Force.
Still ahead on Magic in the Air, we'll journey to Salt Lake City for an up-close visit with Rick Brickard, otherwise known as the Red Knight.
And we'll show you an act that's guaranteed to keep you on the edge of your seat, the wing-walking team of Cross and Soon after that, Rick began his quest to become a pilot.
I started flying when I was 16, and I got my license on my 17th birthday, and then I got my commercial on my 18th birthday, and a week later I was flying using my commercial license.
And ever since then, Rick Brickard, alias the Red Knight, has been flying. In the 80s, Rick took up racing, winning the national championship in 1986 by traveling at a speed of almost 500 miles an hour. These days, you'll find Rick thrilling airshow crowds around the country flying his fire engine red T-33 jet. Rick also owns Red Knight Air Service, a company that modifies and restores vintage aircraft. Right now, he and his 6-member crew are working on an F-86, 4 MiG fighters, and hiding in the back of the hangar is a Grumman Goose. Rick and his wife Ann live in the shadow of the Wasatch Mountains in Salt Lake City, Utah. They recently purchased this 5,000 square foot home. Now, what started out as a few changes to the kitchen and new carpets has turned into a complete renovation. After they move a few walls, install new cabinets and a new fireplace, they'll have the home that they've always dreamed of. All this is possible through another one of Rick's ventures, a construction company. The feature that sold them on this house wasn't the pool out back or the circular staircase. It was the dressage arena and stables for Ann's thoroughbred horses.
Of course, the horses are a big passion of my wife's, and she's put up with the airplanes for all these years, and so I put up with her horses.
Rick's interest in horses surprises Ann at times.
It's been really fun to see because he's never shown any interest before. You know, we've gone on a couple of trail rides here and there, and that's been fine with him. But since we acquired this place, he really has taken an interest. He's even gotten to the point he halters her and takes her and turns her out, and we're going to find a horse for him so that he can start riding. And he even mentioned that he wanted to jump, which I was shocked, you know.
The current Red Knight was built in 1953. Its Rolls-Royce engine produces over 5,000 pounds of thrust, enough to propel it to a speed of over 500 miles per hour. Rick agreed to take me for a test spin so I could experience the thrill of soaring through the skies firsthand.
T-33 is two-place, straight wing airplane, self-starting capability, so we can go into small airports. The Sabre would have been a more fun airplane to fly around in, but unfortunately it doesn't have the range the T-Bird does, and also it doesn't have the ability to give press rides.
Besides the paint job, the Red Knight is unique for another reason.
When we transformed the airplane into the Red Knight, we painted it red, called it the Red Knight, and that was kind of a return to the past. The Canadians flew a single T-33 in the 60s called the Red Knight, and so we felt that gave some history to our act. And we've kind of recreated the Red Knight of the 60s. And we added a wingtip smoke system onto the Red Knight, and gives us a very visible smoke system and unique, you know, having two trails of smoke off the airplane. And then went out with the very distinctive paint scheme is, you know, what makes the Red Knight different from the other acts. The show itself is actually a very high-speed show. We're running around between 350 to 400 knots indicated during the show, and we're pulling 5 to 6 Gs all the time. But it looks like a real casual show when you watch it from the outside. But in actuality, you know, the airplane has a lot of energy, and the speed is high, so the G is high.
As Rick and the Red Knight twist and turn in the skies above, the only G's that the air show crowds experience are cries of, "Gee whiz!"
You know, walking on the wing of this P-51 Mustang isn't all that bad, is it, Rod?
No, it's easy as long as it's sitting here on the ground.
That's a very good point. You know, when Lori Lynn Ross goes to work every day, people shoot her, they set her on fire, they throw her out of buildings, all in a day's work, right?
It is, Elaine, of course, if you're a Hollywood stunt woman. Now, we've probably all seen Lori's work in the movies and on TV, but now you're going to get a chance to see another side of this woman's precarious career as she rides the wings of an airborne stage.
We're into the wing walk show, folks. Let's take our minds back to the days of the barnstormers, because that's how all this stuff got started. Elliot Cross diving the big Waco, and there's Lori lying in the javelin. Okay, over he goes. Now, Elliot Cross is pulling away from the show area to gain a little altitude, and I would think right now that Lori is moving from the wing probably to the cockpit. That's normally the procedure, as she goes from the wing to the cockpit and then from the cockpit up onto the top wing. There's the 1 puff, 2 puffs, 3 puffs, indicating that Elliot's ready to dive back into the show area and show us Lori Ross on the top wing of his airplane. And up he goes, and he rolls the airplane over, and he's going to come into the show area spinning that airplane, spinning it down with Lori on the top wing. Now, if you think she isn't uncomfortable up there, I'll tell you, it can be a bit of a shock to the old body. And she's undergoing some now as Elliot dives back into the show area, pulls back and rolls the Waco into the inverted, flying down the show line. Lori with her arms outstretched, cutting through the wind as Elliot rolls back 180 degrees to straight and level flight. Standing on her head, upside down, one hand, 1 foot, doing the flag, waving to us. She's hanging on with 1 foot, shaking hands with Elliot Cross as she's just kind of hanging on to the strut. Lori Ross, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and Elliot Cross flying the Waco. What a great job you did out there today, both of you.
It just seems to fly by, Elaine.
Somehow I knew you were going to use that bad pun before the day was over. I hope that you've had just as much fun watching our show as we've had bringing it to you.
And we want to invite everybody back for next year's air show. In fact, the planning for next year's stories has begun already, and I think I've got a plane to catch right now.
I hope it's not that little F4 you were riding around in earlier. Could take you a while to get home. On behalf of the entire KPTV production staff, I want to thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next year. Goodbye.
See you next year.
KPTV's exclusive coverage of the 1993 U.S. Bank Rose Festival Air Show has been brought to you in part by the Olive Garden Italian Restaurant, where all the best of Italy is yours. By U.S. Bank, we're here for the real risk takers in the Northwest, the entrepreneurs. By Acura, who invite you to test drive the new 1994 Acura Integra. By Taco Bell. Now get that great Taco Bell taste 24 hours a day at participating locations. And by Valvoline Motor Oil. People who know use Valvoline.